Hey, welcome back. Welcome back, everybody.
Low.
Don't pull the curtain back on that one, because I don't think that we don't want to spin down the rabbit hole. Basically, welcome back, everybody. Basically, Doc and I went into the hallway, and he punched me a few times, but you know that I'm committed to nonviolence.
And even Maddie came out and said, "You need to kick him once for me."
Yeah.
Isn't that true, Maddie?
Well, I am basically committed to the idea of every single person being the victim of gun violence at least once in their life. But speaking of things that are funny and wonderful and uplifting, Syria is something that is in the news again because of developments from our good friends over at the Kremlin. Doc, the Russians are bombing CIA facilities and training missions, and that's great.
Well, they're denying that they're bombing anything. I will tell you this, though. The Turks, if this thing blows up and we enter into World War III, it's going to be because of the Turks. Because the Russians, on more than one occasion, have just flown right through Turkish airspace on their bombing runs. You know?
Well, what did they do? They said, they told us to keep our planes keep our planes on the ground or something, because they were moving their planes in and we didn't. And now they're all in a tiz about that we violated some kind of agreement that exists in the fever dream of Vladimir Putin's generals, I guess.
Well, here's the other thing that's interesting and that's being widely reported in Eastern Bloc media, that there's actually troops on the ground. Putin says there's 1,500. Several reports from the Russian media, including ITAR TASS, and there's another one, I think Kiev Post, reported that there's far more than that. They estimate 5,000 people on the ground, troops on the ground in Syria. Kiev Post has reported that most of the people there are there not by choice. I mean, they found out where they're going and they went, we don't want to go there. But what they have found is these supposed headquarters that the United States have not been attacked, that they're still either intact or abandoned, and they don't find any evidence that a bomb was dropped in the area. Don't get me wrong. They say some places are, but some places are not. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know anything about the desert, but I would assume that if you blow a big hole in the ground, even if it is sand and blowing around, you'll be able to find something. That's just my thing. Number two, they flew 50 sorties in 2 days and said they have degraded ISIS ability to fight by almost 40%. Keep in mind, these are the Russians. They have a tendency to lie and manipulate and say whatever they need to say.
Our government's been saying that for the last year and a half too. I mean, it doesn't seem airstrikes don't seem to do. I mean, they hold them in place for a while, and then we give them a break because we have to, and then they do whatever they want to do.
Well, yeah, and that's an air campaign never wins you a war, right? It never does. You can't hold the ground. The real kicker in all this, a Ukrainian POS frigate, and I can't remember the name of this ship, but anyway, Ukraine sold this rusty bucket to the Chinese, 18 years ago, and the Chinese have been rehabbing this thing, and they finally got it to go. In fact, it doesn't even have the ability to launch a jet right off at the end of its nose. It has to angle it up so it's a ramp. So it has 5 planes on it. That thing is docked in a port in Syria, and it is flying combat missions as we speak in coordination with Russia, Syria, Iran, and Iraq. Russia already has its own fighter base, courtesy of us, in the northern part near the Kurds, right? Now, the Iraqs don't like the Kurds. The Iranians don't like the Kurds. Guess who's going to be on the target list?
Yep.
The Kurds.
Well,
and here's what it is. The Turks don't like the Kurds any more than anybody else does. And so now the Turks are going like, well, hold on. If the Russians can bomb the people we hate, terrific. So now it's just going to be a big, giant mess where our allies are getting bombed silly over there. And in the meantime, we're bombing hospitals of Doctors Without Borders. Fantastic foreign policy.
Well, I'll tell you this. Russia wants to fight ISIS to protect Bashar al-Assad. The United States
Absolutely.
wants to fight ISIS and get rid of Bashar al-Assad. Essentially, there needs to be some sort of political solution where the power of Bashar al-Assad is dealt with, either as a protected maybe asylum exit to Russia. I have no idea what that would look like, because it seems like a zero-sum game at some point, but a military option is just not feasible at this point, because the military objectives would be kind of at odds with each other. Both fighting ISIS, but at the end of it, so if Russia and the United States were to put boots on the ground, I think everybody sort of understands that ISIS would probably be crushed within a matter of days, right? If Russia and the United States were to both commit forces, which both are very unlikely to actually do, then what happens? We go back home and let Assad keep doing what he was doing. That doesn't seem like anybody wants that outcome to happen. Not really. And so the military solution seems to be completely unfeasible. And we're right back in the quagmire that we were before.
Yeah. Well, with the added bonus of you have two countries that have really never liked each other, staring eyeball to eyeball over nuclear weapons, because I don't care. Because this is the truth. If World War III blew up, the United States would roll all over Russia like, last week's news.
We kind of would have to, right? They have the second biggest stockpile.
Well, yeah. But the thing is conventionally, we stomp them. The problem is the Russians still have a dead hand over their nuclear stockpile, which means they're going to launch them all at us anyway. That's not a victory. Okay, that isn't. You can't eat food out of radiated soil. All right. Now, what we've learned with like Nagasaki and Hiroshima is, that stuff, the nuclear fallout and the radiation only lasts about 5 years, and then you're good to go. That's a long 5 years. All right. If the entirety of the United States is gone, that's what the problem is. We are working very hard with the Russians to coordinate our strikes. There's always something that goes wrong in military circles. Mm-hmm. It happens this way all the time. Look at the Gary Francis getting shot down with the U-2 plane, right? Is that what do you call them? The U-2 spy plane. Yep, that's it.
I think so.
Yeah, because I had music on my head for a second. The bottom line is this is a dangerous situation. You have 3 of the 5 veto powers in the UN sitting there fighting supposedly together at completely different directions of where they want this to go. And Vladimir Putin, who we're going to affectionately refer to as Uncle Vlad,
I like it.
Is not, well, that's from Jason. He's got our back. And the bottom line is he wants Assad to remain in power. We have successfully screwed ourselves in 2 different theaters, Ukraine and Syria. And what the Russians, if you want to talk about failed policies, let's talk about failed policies that prove America's exceptionalism. One, we were over in Afghanistan for a decade, throwing billions of dollars down the toilet for that country, the same in Iraq, and yet here we are still standing. We're one of the very few countries in history that could have done what we did over a decade and still be left reasonably whole as a political system. Number one, Russia can't do that. They don't have the ability to prop up states like they did. So what they do is they grab statelets, and they grabbed a statelet in Ukraine, and they're grabbing a statelet in Syria, and that is how they're gradually expanding their hegemony.
Yeah, so it's a cash grab for resources to protect political power. You see that with Russia, you see that with China, you see that with Venezuela. It's not. Their leader down there isn't necessarily as charismatic as Hugo Chavez was, but you see that kind of thing in Cuba. It just, I have nothing really to add. Yeah. It's just a.
Well, you playing anywhere this week, or you heading out of town?
I'm out of town, man. I'm headed north. I'm getting out of town. I'm going to the woods with my dog for 4 days and be around nobody and nothing and read books and drink whiskey. It's gonna be great.
That is going to be great. Hopefully you'll be back next week for the show.
I will be back next week.
I will be in London watching the Rugby World Cup, and it is all kinds of drama going on over there, and I'll be there for that. We're going to see if we get the rabbi on, Mike from JLM Shooter. I'm hoping to get him on as a guest host one week. And then I have, maybe you can invite somebody who's a right winger on.
You're the only one I know.
No, that's not true. I know a bunch of them. So anyway, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week.
Good night.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Get over here. Love both of them.